Hello and welcome back to the Enricher Business Circle, the podcast for leaders who know that their company's culture is their ultimate competitive advantage. I'm your host, Rickdrieka Bennett. My guest today is a verifiable rock star in the world of leadership and culture. He is a former CEO who led thousands of employees and appeared on the Inc. 5000 list 5 times and consistently built organizations ranked as a best place to work. He has been named the number one leadership speaker of culture by Inc. magazine and is the best-selling author of The Power of the Company Culture and Remote Work. Please give a huge welcome to Chris Dyer. Chris, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Well, Chris, it is my honor today to have you on the show. So I definitely can see that your journey of business has been truly been fascinating. You weren't just a consultant observing the culture, but you were a CEO in the trenches. So you have that experience of building the actual company. What was your pivotal moment that made you realize about culture where that ER in the engine performance of companies?
Yeah, so I really went into kind of a dark place with the organization. I mean, there was a recession in 2008. We were
Mhm.
struggling. We lost 40% of our clients and our business and revenues, and we were thinking, how are we going to survive this? How do we maybe not have to lay people off? And I really wanted my people to come up with amazing ideas, and I wanted them to be resilient, and I want them to do all these things that we know culture, great culture, can help us do. It can be kind of the shock absorber of all of the things that are happening to us when our culture is good. And that's when I realized, like, our culture is not that good. It's good when things are going good, and it's fine when
Mhm.
things are going fine, but it wasn't good when things weren't good. And that was that moment I realized I had to do more, and I had to spend all of my time as a CEO working on the culture as my number one priority if I wanted our people to be able to help us survive anything.
So would you say that when it comes to culture, when you're working on it, because I know your book talks about remote work, and especially with COVID, a lot of people transition to working remote. Do you think that the coach establishing culture is more harder when you're doing remote working versus actually having people in the building?
Yeah. So my second book was on remote work.
Mhm.
And I will tell you that, so certainly when it comes to culture, the easiest is to be in person.
Okay.
That is the easiest. For remote work, that is the second easiest or the second hardest, depends on how you look at it. But it's also remote has the ability to be more transformative and to allow us, I think, some really special advantages that a in-office setting doesn't give us. So remote is a little bit harder, but can give us more back. The
Okay.
hardest to do with the least amount of benefits is actually hybrid. So when we have some people in the office and some people not in the office, that's the hardest one actually to manage correctly and to get the most advantages out of. So, um, you know, just easier. Sure. Have everyone in the same office. You don't have to work that hard and you can have a pretty decent culture. Got to work a little bit harder at it for remote, but you can have really transformative changes. You can allow different types of people to work for you. You can expand who works for you. There's lots of real advantages there.
I love that. Yeah, and with that, building that culture like the foundational um part that you teach all business owners?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly culture is where we start, and we start with those lessons, and we
Okay.
need our leaders to show up and understand people like us do things like this, and people like us don't do things like that. And we have to be very clear about what our boundaries are, about what our guardrails are, and that we're not just asking our leaders to figure it out or to do a good job. We have to be very explicit with them about what it is we want them to do or not do, so that then they can go and figure out how to do those things in their own way
Okay.
versus just asking them to show up and be their own leader and then hope that it all aligns, because that just doesn't work.
And with that, like I definitely agree. Because I see a lot of books about culture, and a lot of times it seems like they try to make it as if it's a one size fits all box. Could you talk more about your 7 pillar strategy? So for like business owners and things like that, because I don't feel that when it comes to culture, every business culture is the same, and that it can't be a one size fits all box.
Yeah, culture is one size fits one. I mean, it's one employee at a time, it's one
Mhm.
company at a time, it's one team at a time. So you're 100% right. I developed the 7 pillars to help everyone understand what are the things you have to get clear about, what are the things you
Okay.
have to get good at. Now, you can decide how you want to do those things. That's where the differences come in. So we're not all trying to be Google. We're not all trying to be Jeff Bezos. We're not all trying to be Zuckerberg and Meta. Like, those are cultures you can look at and decide you like or you don't like. But if you're building, it can be just my team. It can be just my division. It can be my company, whatever that group of people is that you have some impact on. Maybe the leader, maybe you're a coworker, maybe you're just a teammate.
Mhm.
Whatever that is, are you good, or how does your team, division, group, whatever company, how do you deal with things like transparency, positive leadership, recognition, listening, measurement, and how do you deal with mistakes?
Okay.
Those 7 things consistently. When you're a great culture, you have a specific way to deal with those 7 things, and that you're doing them really, really well in your own way, right? How I did transparency is not exactly how other people did transparency. But if you're being very transparent with your people, you're going to have a pretty good culture because they understand what's happening, why it's happening, why we made that decision, why we didn't make that decision, why we hired that person, why we didn't, right? But if you're hiding everything,
Mhm.
then people just make up stories. They fill in the gaps with their own past negative experiences. You know, if I hire someone and I keep hiring people and they just happen to all be from my family or my friends, well, the story is clearly that I don't value anybody else's opinion, or I'm only want to have people I can control, or will listen to me or do what I say, right? So that transparency factor is huge.
Okay. So I want to kind of zoom in on one of your pillars for a second, because a lot of when it comes to remote work, a lot of leaders say that it kills productivity. However, I'm one that believes the opposite. Based on your experience leading massive remote teams, what's the biggest myth you would like to bust?
Certainly that you started. Let's start with productivity, because this has been measured. When everybody went remote, we saw massive higher productivity. So
Mhm.
productivity has never been a problem for remote work. In fact, we see the opposite problem, that people tend to work too much. They don't know how to turn off their computers and shut their office door and cut that cord and then leave work and go to family stuff. They actually kind of keep working all the time while they're at home. And that was something I had to combat that. Like
Okay.
I almost never had a problem where we had to address that we thought someone wasn't doing enough work or wasn't being productive. It was more so that they were on their way to burning out
Okay.
because they couldn't turn off their brains and they didn't know how to like shut off that part of them that wanted to answer an email at 9 o'clock at night when they should have just been reading a book to their kids. Like, that was honestly one of our biggest challenges. Where we see an actual problem with remote work, as I mentioned before, is you have to work a little bit harder at the culture,
Okay.
because we can't just be lazy. If I'm in an office and I notice that people are not getting along, well, I notice we have a problem.
Mm.
But that's not as easy to notice when we all just suddenly show up on Zoom. And here we are, and we're talking, and we're all being cordial, and then the Zoom turns off. And I'm, for your boss, I have no idea if you're getting along with that person, or if you're collaborating. Like, there's so much missing. So I had to do a little bit more work to find out, to get that data, to understand what's really happening with my team. Again, I think there's a reward for that traditional work doesn't give you. But that's actually the larger problem.
So it seems like for remote work, it's all about being vulnerable and transparent um, through the whole process in order to make sure that culture is there.
Yeah, we do have to be vulnerable and we do have to be transparent. But I would reframe it as we have to be intentional. We have
Okay.
to be highly, highly intentional about what we want, what we don't want, and how we want people to act and to think and respond, not in a micromanaging way, but in a very general way, right? That we give people that correct guidance about what we want them to do. Um, you know, no coach is telling LeBron James exactly um, how to go play basketball, but we're certainly talking about maybe the kind of offense we want to run or how we're going to run the play or what the kind of defense. But the individual decisions that a player in a court might make are based on their talents. And so we want to drive our people to do the things they're talented at, but give them
Mhm.
a framework and an understanding about how we're going to do that together.
And this kind of leads me to segue to another question, because I know that you're known for building the culture, and your companies have won Best Place to Work awards multiple times. So beyond the trophy, what were the tangible and non-negotiable habits that you kind of instilled in the people who are working for you as a leader to make that happen?
Yeah, I mean, some of our non-negotiables were that we wanted people to really create a lot of structure and a lot of boundaries around their work. So yes, I want them to work hard. Yes, I want them to get that stuff done. But I don't want somebody working on a project at 11 o'clock at night, unless it's an emergency, unless it's like something really unusual. I want my people to work hard when they're supposed to work, and I want them not to be working and not to be thinking about work when they're not working. Like those kind of boundaries were important for our people to maintain good, healthy habits and for them to be productive for a very long period of time. And so we had to really find ways to help them do that. So we
Okay.
would teach them things like uh, when we would hire somebody new, even if they had been remote work in the past, we would tell them every night, I want you to shut your laptop, because we bought everybody laptops. There was no desktop. I want you to shut that laptop door, you know, literally close it, computer off. And I want you to have a space that you use,
Hmm.
right? Preferably it was an office space. If they didn't, we figured out how to replicate this otherwise. But then I told them, I want you to shut that door every day. Those two acts, those physical acts of shutting the computer and shutting the door, helped them not run back and start working again after dinner. Not putting in that extra time unless it was something special. We also asked people to put an out of office message if they were going to go on 4 days or more, to say something like, I'm not going to read your message. I'll return on this date. You can resend me the email if I need to read it. Otherwise, here's some other people that can help you right away. So we gave them that permission to say, hey, I'm not going to, I'm out. And because I'm out, I'm not working, and I'm not working on the work that was gone while I wasn't here. Otherwise,
Hmm.
you're not working. Um, and when they would show up onto the return back from work, they had a meeting with their team. Their team filled them in on what they were doing. We call that an ostrich meeting. Told them what emails might be important. That's something that's happening right now. But otherwise, we asked them to share their screen and delete all of their emails from when they were gone. So when you returned to work, you had inbox 0, and you had told all those people who had emailed you, you're not going to respond unless they resend it on
Hmm.
this day or after. That created the permission people needed to create boundaries, to have structure, to take time off, to be with their families, and which ultimately made it so they were better when they were working, right? Just like running a marathon. If all you ever did was run and you never slept and you never like stretched and you never did anything, you would get pretty exhausted and you just collapse and die. Like, yet for work, we have people that just want to keep going, 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 going until they collapse and they quit and then they go find another job. And I never wanted that for my people.
I love it. So I do have like I know Microsoft just released this new thing in Teams where those who are working remote, it has more of a like a tracking database so that they can know like where people are, if people are actually working. And for business owners who have people working from them and they struggle with making sure that person is actually doing the work when they're supposed to do that work, did you have like a policy in place for that?
No, what you, in my opinion, is what you focus on grows. So if you
Okay.
want to focus on, oh, I want to know if you're working, I want to know if your little green light is on, like that is a pretty terrible way to manage. And that is the lazy way that when we're all in one office that people manage. They go, oh, I see you sitting at your desk. You must be being productive. That is stupid. I mean, I want to know what it is you're supposed to accomplish, and it's very clear and transparent between the two of us. If I was your boss, that I know what you're supposed to do, and it doesn't matter if you're sitting at your desk or you're sitting on the beach in Hawaii. Like if
Mhm.
you get your stuff done, if you have goals and you get your stuff done, I don't care where you do it. I don't care how you do it. I don't care on what computer. I don't care if it's on a phone. Like why would that be a problem? You know, like why would I need that tool unless I have not done my hiring correctly? I have not communicated those goals correctly. We've not had that discussion and made those commitments. And it's not easy and clear to understand whether or not you've done your job without me ever having to look at some Microsoft Teams, data point about where you are and how many minutes you've been green versus yellow and all that. So that is the wrong way to manage people. And so I had zero problems with this. I think I had one person out of thousands of employees that we fired because they were not working. But it was obvious. It was obvious they weren't working because we set up the things of what was supposed to happen and those things weren't happening. We went back and
Mhm.
said, "How can we help you?" They said, "No, we got it and we're still looking." Hey, we're still not seeing any results. And they said, "I'm working on it." And we said, "No, you're not. You're done." Like it's a very easy decision to let them go. All the other people never once had to bother them. And again, because we did that, we said, hey, we trust you as a beginning point. Day one, we trust you.
Mhm.
Here's what you're supposed to do. Here's how we decide if you're being successful. And we all agree on that. And we trust you. Again, my biggest problem was they worked too much. And I was trying to stop them from working all the time. That was my biggest problem. So if you're on the other end of it saying, my biggest problem is I don't know if they're working or not, you have a different problem. You have a culture problem, you have a leadership problem, not a I need to spy on people.
I love that you said that, especially with the culture and the leadership, because I feel that if I assign a task to you, as long as the task is done, I don't care about the location.
Yeah.
I give you a deadline for the task, and you send it to me, and I review and give you feedback. But I definitely saw recently about that article, and I was like, huh, it's gonna be a lot of people upset when when they see that Microsoft Teams are embedding these things to kind of spy on them for no apparent reason. And I also noticed that, like, with a lot of people who were working remote for the government, one of the biggest reasons they quote unquote said that they forced them to go back to a building was because lack of productivity. So that was the other thing. And I thought that was kind of weird that they allow people to be remote with the government for like a year. And then now you're saying there's a lack of productivity.
I worked with the US Patent Office and consulted with them, and they saw the highest amount of productivity when everybody went remote. Because what they realized was and there were other challenges. They had challenges with mentoring and with training, and they had to like figure out new ways to do that because they had traditionally just had people mentor with or sit next to someone at a desk for 6 months and learn
Mhm.
how to do their job. And like, so they had to figure out, they had other challenges, but they had the best turnover rate for like getting a patent processed when everybody was fully remote. And
Oh,
now that
wow.
they've gone back to being in the office, that's gone back down to pre-pandemic levels. It's actually gotten even a little bit slower. And that's because there's so many interruptions at work. When you allowed people whose job it is to sit and need to do concentrated work and to sit and think and do research and make really big strategic, big brain power decisions on very complicated matters, they need to be left alone. What they need is peace and quiet and time to do their work and do their research. You suddenly have them back in the office and they're getting, Bob is telling them dumb jokes and Sally's interrupting with IT issues, and Sam is cooking salmon in the microwave and it reeks, and you leave the building because you can't stand the smell. Like all the like icky human problems, right? We forget about when you're all together. Now, and I love being together. Don't get me wrong. We do need to have moments being together. We don't need to be together most of the time.
Yeah, because I have a friend who works for the government, and now that they come back, it's like they're forcing them to do like team events. But I feel that it's weird because when they're forcing them to do the team events, they're imploding basically on their family time.
Yep.
After doing that, all the work at the office during the day, they're taking like after work time or over the weekend time, forcing them to go to like a baseball game and things like that. And I was like, that's kind of not nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it's a leadership and culture issue. So if they were seeing drops in productivity, which I would be shocked if there was actually really something that said it was lower productivity. What we noticed was there was a shift in the administration. There was a distrust of remote work. Again, it was, I need to see you to believe you're working. And it was a culture and leadership problem. And they said, well, it's easier to manage you as a leader if you're here. That's why they moved them back. Not that, hey, I'm seeing that you're doing less work. It could also be that if you're not clear about what does success look like, what do I expect from you to say you did a good job, and you send somebody home, then you're not sure if they're doing a good job because you're not seeing them sitting at their desk or working long hours or raising their hand in meetings. So we lost the way to judge their productivity. And that's a leadership and culture problem, not an average employee problem. That's not their problem.
Awesome. And for a listener who is overwhelmed in their business right now, what is like one pillar that they can actually start implementing in their business this week to see some type of real change when it comes to like the culture or leadership?
Being radically transparent right now with everything you can possibly be transparent about. Sharing personal goals, sharing team goals, sharing the company goals, sharing how we're doing, showing up once a month and having every department report how they're doing and what they're doing specifically to help meet their team goals, their personal goals, their company goals. Sharing why something was happened, being willing to give the real answer about why we did this thing or that thing or hired that person or fired that person. If you can't always say why you fired that person, but we can a lot of the times. When people know the real story and they know why it happened or what we're going to do about it or how we're going to fix the problem and what we've already thought about, they actually relax. Even though you feel like you're telling people bad news, if you're like, okay, here's the bad news and this is what you learned or this is what you're going to do about it, as the employee, I feel actually, okay, I understand. Now, if you keep doing the same dumb thing over and over for 12 months, yeah, that's a different problem. But if you're like, listen, we lost the Johnson account. Here's what we learned. Here's what we're going to do different. We're hiring a person like this to deal with that. And I go, oh, okay. So yes, that bad thing happened, but the next time it happens, we have a solution for that. I feel confident in my company still because of course bad things happen, mistakes happen. But we're going to do something about it. If I'm just sitting in the office and I don't know anything and we just keep losing accounts and I don't know what's happening, like I'm just going to think our company sucks or our sales team sucks. And I have no trust or faith in my leadership. And that's a very different way to operate. It's the same things are happening, but I have a very different outlook and way in which I'm going to operate myself as an employee if I actually understand what's really happening. So getting radically transparent is the easiest, cheapest, best way that you can make that change right now.
So do you think that in order to get radically transparent, that there needs to be some type of audit to as look at the company's goals and then look at the boundaries and things that you set for each employee?
Yeah, I mean, we need to look at all of those. We need to make sure that we're being fair. It's really hard to be equal to all employees because every employee is different, has different situations. They could be one person living by themselves. They could be in a family unit with 8 people. Like,
Mhm.
how we think about, we have to design things that are fair for employees, not equal, not like, and there are some things that have to be equal under the law. I get that. But like in general, the squishy things, we just need to be fair about what we give every different employee, thinking about their individual situations so that we have that best possible culture and best possible approach for each person.
Awesome. Well, Chris, this has definitely been like a masterclass on culture and leadership. And I definitely love the feedback that you gave the audience on today. And thank you so much for giving us this insight on today as well and sharing your framework. Is there any way that you would like to share how others can connect with you as well?
Sure. So I'm on all the different social media platforms: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, X, LinkedIn. If anybody hangs out there, any of those places, I'm happy to connect with you. And if anybody would like a free little PDF on some things that you can do with your teams to make things better, asking better questions, meeting better, I have a little PDF that I like to give out to people. If you just want to text 33777 and you just put my name, Chris, as the message, it'll send you off that PDF, and no other obligation for anything else after that.
Awesome. And thank you to all of our listeners for joining today for this episode. Remember, culture isn't built in a day, but it is built every day. Until next time, keep enriching your journey in business.